Thank you guys for joining our office hours today. This is one of the first that we've done at Braavo. And today we're going to be talking all about Braavo Analytics. My name's Alanna, and I'm the founder in residence here at Braavo. But before that, I've actually been a long-time Braavo client for my own app business. And I actually consider myself a power user of Braavo's analytics dashboard. So I'm pretty excited to be co-hosting this office hours for you with Chris from Braavo. So Chris, why don't you introduce yourself first, and then I'll quickly mention our agenda and how this whole session is going to work.
Cool, sounds good. Before I introduce myself, Alanna, I was looking at just user metrics the other day, and I think you're probably in the top 10 users by sessions across all Braavo users. So you're not wrong that you're a power user.
I told you.
Yeah. So I'm Chris. I'm Director of Business Development. I've been with Braavo since 2017. So I've seen the full life cycle of Braavo Analytics. I mean, before we even had Braavo Analytics. So it's been really great to see how much time and energy the team has put towards analytics and just where it is now. So it's been really exciting to see that. Alanna, if you want to talk about kind of the structure of things, and then I can jump into the analytics.
For sure. So during this office hours, we're going to be going through a bunch of different features on the analytics dashboard. Chris will be giving a demo of all of these features with some sample data, but so that way you can see how it works in real time. But as I mentioned, if you do want to also open up your own account, if you have an account, to log in, just so you can follow along. And we do want to keep this very conversational and interactive, since there aren't too many of us in here. So please feel free to jump in at any time if you have questions, or you can also drop a question into the chat and we can try to address it on the fly. There were also some really good questions that were submitted through the registration form, so I might bring those up and we'll try to answer those as well. We'll leave some time for additional Q&A at the end. And this will take about an hour. I know we only have the hour, so we'll do our best to fit everything in. But at the same time, we'll also be recording everything, and we'll send you the recording afterwards. So Chris, if you'd like to take it away.
Cool, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, great. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So as I mentioned earlier, I've been with Braavo since 2017. But Braavo as a company, we have been around since 2015. We are a data-driven funding platform with a robust analytics platform as well. You can think of the analytics that we provide as being, executive level dashboards, dashboards that you can look at, on a daily basis, where you can get actionable insight into how the business is doing from a high level. As Alanna says, you can get a pulse on how the business is doing. We're not going to be, the super detailed analytics platform that gives you like user level data, but we're going to give you that business level data that will be, really informative. So first thing I want to do is jump into the integrations. So we have about 50 plus integrations that we utilize for both analytics and for funding purposes. And this list is constantly growing. If a new platform, becomes popular amongst the mobile app community, then our dev team is quick to jump on that and try to create some integrations. So one of the great things about Braavo's platform is that it doesn't utilize any SDKs. So some of the platforms, like maybe an attribution account, such as like Adjust, might have an SDK where you have to spend development resources to integrate it into the app. With Braavo, we don't use any of that. So like Apple, for example, you might just have to input an Apple ID or invite a specific user to the account. Another great thing about the integrations that we utilize is you never have to update or reintegrate the platforms. So each of these different platforms, they're constantly updating, how the platform works and how to pull data. So if there is an update to, one of the platforms that you might be integrated to, well, it's on our dev team's side to update that integration. So you never have to redo it. Like Alanna said earlier, she's a power user and she can't remember ever having to go back in and update an integration.
Exactly.
Alanna, is there anything you want to add to that, Alanna?
Yeah, well, I think it'd be really great if you could point out what are some of the most popular integrations that Braavo customers are using.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely the two main integrations that we see are Apple and Google Play for the sales data. And of course you get subscription data and a lot of really interesting insights there. But going off of that, we have Adjust and AppsFlyer are two of the main attribution platforms that we have customers integrate with. I would say AppsFlyer is probably 75% of the attribution integrations, which I find pretty interesting. Then we have user acquisition and marketing platforms like Google Ads, Facebook, and if you had a revenue coming from ads, we got all the major platforms. So like AdMob, Iron Source, Unity, InMobi, you name it. So definitely the ones that you're seeing up here are probably the most popular, but every company has different needs, and we have integrations for all of those needs. Um, Now, one thing I wanted to mention is that each of the integrations has a specific purpose. So if you click on one, like Apple App Store, you can see what the integration is used for. So for the Apple App Store, integration is to show you app revenue analytics and subscription analytics. Whereas if you click on Apple Payments, you can see that this integration is used for financing. So each of them has some sort of different use case, financing qualification and engagement analytics. So if you see analytics, this is going to pull data into the platform for something that you can utilize. And then if you see like financing qualification, this is just utilized from a financing qualification perspective for the team. So you might not see that type of data coming in. I think that mostly covers everything that I wanted to say about integrations, unless Alanna, you can think of anything.
Yeah, well, you can just search for whatever integration you're looking for as well. And they're also organized on the left sidebar there based on category. And if you're not sure how the integration works, there's instructions on each one. And you can also just contact the team if you have any questions about each integration itself. Also, I think there was something we wanted to mention here about data security. I know that that's a question that comes up when it comes to actually integrating each account.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not on the product or dev team, so I can't speak to the technical side of data security, but I can tell you that Braavo is a data-driven platform, and because of that, we understand how sensitive data can be. We wouldn't have such a good reputation after all these years if we didn't take data security seriously. So we have an amazing, reputation. We don't do anything with any of the data that's in the platform. No third parties get access to it. So we do take data security very seriously. If there's specific questions around that, you can let us know and we can have the dev or the product team give like a specific answer about that. Sound good?
Awesome.
Cool. All right, I'll jump into the analytics and we can take it from there. So like I said, you could think of Braavo Analytics more of the executive level, the platform. So we are very good at aggregating all of your different data sources. So if, you work for a company where you are manually exporting data from Apple and Google Play and, a bunch of the different ad networks, marketing and user acquisition data, and you have to manually create these aggregated reports, maybe on a weekly or monthly basis, that can take a long time. Well, with Braavo, we do that automatically on a daily basis, so you don't have to. And for a lot of analytics users, this has saved tons of time. I mean, hours, a week or month. So each of the different platforms or the charts that you see are very easy to use and understand. Again, snapshots, high level business information to make actionable insights. So I'll go over each of them and we'll kind of jump into them. So looking specifically at monetization, we're under the revenue tab. This shows you all of the cumulative revenue, and you can see that we have it grouped by platform. But you can group it by different revenue types or by specific app if that's something that you would like to do. So additionally, you can go through, you can look at net revenue, gross revenue, and profit, which I find to be a really interesting platform because it compares your daily revenue from the different revenue streams that you have linked with your total ad spend, so your total aggregated ad spend. Obviously, this doesn't include like operating expenses, but it gives you a high level understanding of how the app business is doing and how profitable it is. So from there, we can jump into. So I don't think this demo company has ad revenue, but it would look very similar to what you saw here. It would show you the breakdown on a daily basis of the different ads. So if you had, AppLovin, Unity, the different ad networks, you'd see that ad revenue here. And since we're under the monetization, just know this is the revenue, not the ad spend. And then
Right.
in that purchase, again, this is a subscriptions demo platform that I'm looking at. But if you had single one-off in-app purchases, you would see it show up very similar to what you're seeing in the cumulative revenue chart. So another thing that I wanted to mention, which I think I didn't really appreciate how valuable this was until recently, but is to be able to see the breakdown of your revenue across your different revenue streams. So I talk to a lot of founders, very regularly who when asked what the breakdown between like Google Play and Apple revenue is, it's always a ballpark. They never really know. But with Braavo's platform, you can now very easily see what that breakdown is. So this company, for example, almost 98% of their revenue is coming from the App Store, and then Google Play is a very small amount. And you can expand on that. So like maybe over the last 180 days, that might have changed. So we'll look at, it's over the last 180 days, it's actually less Google than it is Apple. Now, this could be different for every different app, and could be really interesting for gaming companies who have 5 to 10 different revenue streams.
Yeah, to add to that also, if you have like an off App Store way that you're generating revenue as well, for example, using Stripe, this might be an additional way where you can see sort of the distribution of how your revenue looks. Or you can also I think you can do this over on subscriptions as well, and you can see the distribution of the duration. So, for example, if you wanted to compare monthly against annually, you'd be able to see, exactly. So you'd be able to see this, and it can really help with like high level decision making. Or just sort of like product roadmap planning. Where should the energy be invested in, or maybe taken away from if it's underperforming, for example. So yeah, as Chris said, I think that this is kind of an underappreciated chart that's available in Braavo Analytics.
Yeah, it's so simple, but it can be so powerful. And that's honestly
Definitely.
some of the best products out there are simple products. Cool. So jumping into the subscriptions tab, it's going to dive into your subscription revenue and data more specifically. So right here, we have a ton of different metrics that we can go through. So each of them, pretty straightforward. We have the revenue, monthly recurring revenue, actives, so on and so forth. So let's, look at, MRR. So I'm going to, let's do this. Okay. So let's go back. Let's do 2 years. So when you're on these different charts, obviously you can choose the different time frames that you want, as well as if you want to look at daily, weekly, or monthly. So right now we're just looking at weekly, just to keep things from being less volatile by looking at days. Now, when it comes to the MRR, you can see what the existing MRR is and the new MRR. And what the MRR is it's standardizing the different subscriptions in our purchases over a specific time period. So if somebody purchased an annual subscription, it's going to standardize that to what that annual subscription is, the value is for a given month. So it would be the annual subscription divided by 12. And then similarly, if it was, let's say, a weekly subscription, they would multiply that by 4 weeks to determine what that monthly revenue would look like, and that then shows you trends in your subscriptions, and you can see here existing MRR and new MRR. Another interesting metric here you can drill down into is the trial status. So here you can see the difference between currently paying customers as well as trial statuses. And this is a good segue into the trials section. Now, obviously, it's really important to stay on top of your trials to make sure they're performing and converting well. So here you can see all the new trials that you have on a weekly basis, but of course you can drill down to day or month. Then I like to look at the conversion rate to see what they are. So here we're looking again at the number of active trials on that weekly basis, but you can drill down into converted revenue. So here you can see, the week of June 27th, 21, the converted revenue was 21,100 from trials. And then you can see what the conversion, the actual conversion rate is on that weekly basis. So really good way to stay on top of that.
Also, to add to this, you can filter it or group it based on the product duration as well. So if you wanted to look at, if you have trials for both a monthly product and an annual or a weekly product, for example, you can group it that way, or you can also filter it that way. So whichever way you want to see it.
Yep, exactly. So you can see here, I grouped it by subscription duration, and now it gives you a breakdown of the different subscription durations that you have and what the conversion rate is for that cohort. So you can see, on December 19th, it was 48% for 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. So maybe this company is focusing, more on weekly subscriptions because the conversion rate is so much better. So all things that you can drill down into. And from there, I'll jump into the acquisition section. So this is going to look very similar to the subscriptions or monetizations tabs, but we're looking at user and marketing spend. So right here, you can see the aggregated ad spend across the different platforms. So we're looking at, for this account, Facebook, TikTok, search ads, and Google Ads. Now, one of the great things that we have for the paid acquisition section is we have a blended CPI, blended cost per install across all of those different platforms, which really gives you a good idea of how the paid acquisition is performing across all of the different platforms. So we have spend that we're looking at right now. Then you also have, obviously all of the main metrics. So impressions, again, it's giving you that breakdown across the different platforms. So again, like I said at the beginning, really good, high level reports are going to give you that aggregated data, so you don't have to do it on, a weekly or monthly basis. Oftentimes when companies are doing those manual reports, they might only choose a few specific metrics that they're going to, export and combine. Well, with Braavo's aggregation, we have all of the main metrics that you could, possibly be interested in from like an executive level, and we're aggregating all of that for you. So we have, of course, clicks, installs, and cost per install, of course. And when you're looking here, it's going to show you the different breakdowns rather than the blended CPI, which you're seeing on the other platforms. Another thing I would like to note is that for every chart that you are looking at, on all the analytics, there's an export function where you can export raw data from what it is that you are looking at. So that can be really helpful if you are trying to mess with the data yourself and do maybe some more complex calculations that maybe we're not showing already.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing to add to this is so this is like a more granular overview of what you're seeing on the monetization feature of ad spend. So on monetization, you can see total ad spend, and then over on acquisition, it's a breakdown. Exactly.
Yep, that's definitely a good point. And to kind of add to that, when you hit the export on this tab, and if you're looking at profit, it's still going to give you that it's going to give you that Apple revenue, Google Play, and the ad spend. It's not going to give you the breakdown of ad spend there. So if you want that breakdown exported into the data, then you're going to want to come to the acquisitions section to get that.
Exactly.
Cool. All right, I'll move on to engagement. So if you are a company that's using Adjust or AppsFlyer as attribution, you will have this engagement section, which will show you the different retention curves, retention trends, and active users. So up with the retention curve, what we're looking at right now is, of course, it's a 30-day retention curve based off of install date. So this goes back, quite a long time. You can see goes back, probably as far back as you have it set here. But I don't really think that is too beneficial. I don't think a specific install date is going to give you any why is retention better on this date than the other. But I think it's more interesting to drill down into retention for maybe a specific channel. So we're looking at TikTok ads, Facebook installs. And I usually like to unclick others, but because that tends to show you like a bunch of random stuff. So we're looking at this demo company. You see that organic installs has the highest retention, which is great, but let's try to figure out, based off of paid UA. So we can see here that TikTok ads do pretty well. You can see it's better than the other different platforms. And we'll actually drill down into percentages to figure that out. We'll do off. So yeah, right here you can see all the percentages. So, day one, you can see what the different percentages of the retentions and so on and so forth. So it's pretty easy to understand. Then you can do it by campaign and by country. So it gives you some really interesting information. And if you've ever used Adjust or AppsFlyer, they're really powerful platforms, but they can be kind of confusing to use to get this high level, information. So we like to simplify it in this engagements tab. Now, the retention curve that we're looking at, this covers 30-day retention. But if you go to retention trend, it's going to show you the retention for the entire period that you choose. So this is going to be day 1, day 7, day 14, and day 28 retention for the specific cohorts that we're looking at. But we're doing it over a 2-year period or whatever period is that you're looking at. Cool. And then lastly, just looking at the active users. So we're looking at here, monthly active users broken down by platform. And of course, you could do daily active users. So a lot of interesting insight there.
And Chris, is it possible to break this down based on the source as well? So where these, okay.
So the standard are group by platform, group by country. And then platform or the ad filter, we got platforms and apps. And then you could just choose the specific app that you would like to drill down and look at your daily or monthly active users there.
Awesome.
Cool. Moving on. Oh, also, if for some reason you're using like Adjust and AppsFlyer or multiple different platforms, you could technically come in here and you could choose the different ones to drill down into them individually. So that's just something to keep in mind. Cool. Then we are going to jump into cohorts. So this is pretty powerful platform or section that I like to utilize. And one of the main use cases that I use this for is to determine what the projected renewal revenue is for your annual subscribers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a breakdown of how I do that. So feel free to follow along, or you can just watch how I do it. So each of these are different metrics that we're going to determine, which will eventually give us the expected renewal revenue for the next 12 months for annual subscribers. All right, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to determine the number of annual subscribers that were acquired in the previous 12 months. So to do that, we are going to go back to, let's see, November. Okay, let's go further. Okay, we're going to do November of 2021 all the way to October of 2022. So this is 12 full months prior to today's date. We don't ever want to do any like half months. So we will apply that. Now, to really figure out the actual number of subscribers you want to do, so you could do subscribers. That gives you the number of subscribers, not the revenue. Then you're going to add filter. We'll do subscription durations. And then, like I said, I'm looking at annual subscriptions. So then we're going to throw in 1 year. We're going to group it by start date, month. That gives us a cohort of subscribers for a given month. And then the last thing we'll do is we're going to use the retention period 1 year, simply because we're looking at annual subscriptions. So now we are looking at 16,223 annual subscribers that were acquired last year. So let's throw that in, 16,223. All right. Now we want to see what the revenue was from those annual subscribers in the previous 12 months. That's really easy to do. You just hit this drop down and then you do revenue overall. So this gives us $625,496.60. Now, what you want to do, after this is to determine what the average subscription price or ASP is for those subscribers. This is going to be really a ballpark number because I'm not taking into account the different, fees or commissions from Apple or Google Play and how those might change from 30% fee to 15% fee. So we're just looking at ballpark numbers right now. So the way that we're going to determine that is we're simply going to divide the revenue by the number of subscribers. So 16,223. So that gives us a annual subscription, price of $38.55. Okay, so now we want to determine what the average renewal rate is for annual subscribers. So to do this, we want to go back as far as we possibly can to see how much data we can possibly look at. Obviously, if you're looking at annual subscribers, you need to go back at least 13 months to get a renewal rate. And then we want, as much data as possible. So we'll do January 2020 to, we'll do, let's see, we'll do September of 2021. All right. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do here, we'll do subscribers. And then rather than looking at the number of subscribers, we want to look at the percent, which gives us a conversion rate. So obviously, year zero, it's going to be 100% because you acquired all of those subscribers. But we can now see that in year one, 21.62% of annual subscribers renewed. So we'll throw that in here. So 21.62%. So with that information, now we can determine the expected number of renewals for the next 12 months. So we have 16,223 acquired subscribers last year. If you multiply that by 21%, we get an estimation of 3,507 expected renewals over the next 12 months. And then you simply multiply that by the average subscription price, so $38.55. And we now have an expected renewal revenue for the next 12 months of $135,210.75. Now, this isn't an exact science because of the average subscription price, taking into account the different commissions, and also updating and changing the app and improving on it can drastically affect the renewal rates. So you can see with this company, in January of 2020, the renewal rate was 18.62%, but you can see how that renewal rate has been growing. So you can assume that maybe the renewal rate might actually be a little higher than that, but this at least gives you a good ballpark. So I always find that to be really interesting to see what kind of value is locked into the cohort of annual subscribers that you have. And some companies even think of this value, this expected renewal revenue, as an asset that they can utilize. So I always find that to be really interesting.
Yeah, and just wanted to add to that, the same exercise could be done for your monthly subscriptions as well. So it can help you take a look at what the renewal might be for all of your monthly subscriptions. So you can see how looking at this can help you make decisions when it comes to like what your next year is going to look like if you're a founder or if you're doing this type of analysis for your team. I know that this is also something that Braavo might take into consideration when they're looking at companies for funding opportunities as well. So that might be something to think about. And one more thing is that based on what you connect to Braavo, you instantly have access to data from up to a year before. So unlike some SDKs that are pretty much from installation moving forward, Braavo actually has this historical data once you integrate. So like once you integrate iOS, for example, you can see a year back. Just make sure I have that right, Chris.
Yeah, so with Apple, we're only able to pull previous years worth of data. Some of the other platforms go back as far as the data started. So it really comes down from platform to platform, but you can expect usually at least a year's back worth of historical data to be pulled into the platform.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which is it's really helpful if you think about it. As soon as you set up this integration, you have access to historical data pretty much.
Yeah, right. And like you mentioned earlier this week, with SDKs, you implement it and now you have data starting from that day. So you don't have instant actionable insight that you can make decisions on. Whereas with Braavo, pulling in that historical data, you you have instant value and instant ability to find some actionable insights.
Exactly.
Cool. Moving on from cohorts is the LTV section. Obviously, LTV is a really important metric to keep in mind. So there's a couple different metrics that we calculate under the LTV section. So it honestly will make sense for me to go through each of them, and I'll try to do it pretty quickly because each of them kind of revolves off of each other. So the first one is lifetime. This is how long you are expecting to, have that cohort or that user from that cohort. So looking here, August 2020, and we're in the month right here. So it's combining the whole month. But so the cohort of subscribers that were acquired in August 2020, you can expect Apple App Store, that user to be there for 88 days and Google Play 53 days. Now, if you click on that, it shows you what the retention actually looks like. And the closer that you get, the more predictive analytics you're going to actually see. So let me throw it out a week. Cool. So right here, each of these are actual like renewal data points when it's in that dark blue, and then the over here in the light blue with the dotted line, this is predicted renewals. So based off of historical information that we're looking at, that's what you could potentially expect. So the further back you go, the more actual data points there are. Let's see if I can choose a different time frame. Cool. So the further back you go, you're going to have a lot more actual data points. So it's going to be a lot more accurate. And then the closer that you get to the current date, it's going to be a lot more predicted retention, just because there aren't enough actual like renewal data points to utilize. So this tells us the expected lifetime of a specific cohort. Now what we'll do is we'll jump into lifetime value. So this shows you what the expected value is for that cohort of subscribers based off of how long it's expected for that cohort to stay on the app, multiplied by the subscription value. So this is really easy to understand. You can just pull along and see what that LTV is expected to be. And similar to the lifetime, the further back you go, the more accurate you can expect the LTV predicted to be. Now, with that, we have a total number of subscribers, and this is important for some of the additional metrics. But you can see, total number of subscribers, Apple App Store on, the 24th of this year is 441, and 39 for Google Play. Now, this is important because it's used for predictive revenue. So essentially what P revenue is we are predicting what the revenue is for that cohort of subscribers that you acquired for that time frame. So we're looking at August 7th, 2022. The way we determine this is the number of subscribers multiplied by the LTV gives you that predicted revenue. So this is obviously looking into the future. Now you can compare predictive revenue to the actual cumulative revenue. So looking at this, we can see on 8/21, predicted Apple App Store revenue was 20,467. Now going to cumulative revenue will show you what the actual revenue was for that. So predictive revenue was 20,000. What we're seeing for actual cumulative revenue is 16,000, almost 500. This will potentially go up over time as there are more renewal events. So there's only been a short period of time since this cohort actually started driving revenue, but hopefully we can expect that it gets closer to predictive revenue. And then finally, this is simply the revenue per user. So this takes the cumulative revenue divided by the subscribers for that cohort, which then gives you a revenue per user, which essentially is average revenue per user. So pretty much all of these metrics are working off of each other to give you individual metrics. That was kind of a lot. Anything to add there, Alanna?
So just revenue per user is revenue per paying user, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, because we're looking at cumulative revenue and then subscribers. And the
Right.
subscriber would indicate that it's a paying user.
Mhm.
That's actually kind of made me think of something. So with Apple, we get very detailed like subscription trial data, so we can like drill down into the performance of those trials. For some reason, Google does not provide granular trial status data. So it doesn't give you any indication over whether it's like a subscription that canceled or if it was a trial that, canceled or didn't convert. So under the subscriptions tab, you might find some of the metrics are Apple specific, and it's specifically because Google Play doesn't provide the most detailed trial information. Unfortunately, there's nothing that can really be done about that simply because it's on Google's side. Cool. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention, I think like when it comes to looking at LTV and cohorts, and when you're comparing that against the user acquisition page, I think it's a really good way to be thinking about high level decision making with regards to how your paid acquisition might be performing. Maybe it's also indicating, or it could indicate changes you might need to make to your price. For example, if your LTV is too low against your paid acquisition channels, that might be one decision that can come from this. And just being able to have all this information in one place is extremely useful. So having those paid channels synced up along with how your app is performing, so your iOS, making sure that all that is synced up, it makes it really easy to come in here and see all of this stuff in one place.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going off of that, the data and the metrics and everything that you're seeing in the Braavo Analytics, it's all data that is being pulled directly from the source. So like down here, you'll oftentimes see source. It's Apple App Store, Google Play. We're not pulling, data from a third party and then pulling it into the Braavo account, and then because it's a third party platform, maybe the data is not quite as accurate. We are only pulling direct from sources, and that gives us the most accurate data possible. So you can always expect some pretty accurate data.
Yeah.
Cool. And then lastly, if you want to run custom reports, if you are a data nerd like myself and just want to mess with the numbers, we have 3 different types of reports that you can run. So subscription cohorts, subscription events, and summary. But essentially, all you have to do is choose a time period you want to look at, the different intervals, so daily, weekly, monthly, or entire period, dimensions, and the metrics. And then I believe on users' actual accounts, there's probably just a send button because they know what the email is. But if not, you can just type in the email and hit send. So that'll give you just that raw CSV export sent to your email. So it gets out there. Cool. I think that more or less covers the analytics. A lot of insight that you can gain from it. Again, high level aggregated platforms for executive level decision making, and getting a feel for the pulse of the business.
Awesome.
Anything else you'd like me to cover?
I think that's everything. I think I'd love to leave some time for some questions. I know that I have a few questions that were submitted, and there weren't any questions I think that were raised during the session. Roberta, did you have any questions right off the bat that you wanted us to cover?
Yeah, actually, it's the one that I also submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Sure.
because it's something that could be very, very interesting, that one can, instead of sending the email, right, you have actually a direct API connection from Braavo, and that you can import in your database the data that is, because sometimes, for example, from Apple Store Connect is very hard to pull all the data, so it will be much easier that you can pull directly from Braavo, right? That you connect the Braavo with the Apple Store, and then you retrieve through some API connection. I don't know, but all the data.
Can I jump in, Alanna?
Yes, please.
I actually love this use case, being able to aggregate all of your data sources, and then you have that open API, which allows you to, I mean, it seems so simple, but I can see so much value in it. Alanna, she spoke with the COO and co-founder of Braavo. So we don't currently have one right now, but he said if there's interest from our clients, that's definitely something that we would be open to. So we will let them know that, like someone's interested
because
in that.
no, really, retrieve data from App Store Connect is a nightmare directly.
know.
In fact,
Yeah.
I can guess that all the companies retrieve the data through third-party programs for Apple, not from directly from App Store Connect.
Yeah, the App Store has been a nightmare to work with for as long as I've been with Braavo, but so I see the use case, absolutely.
And
Thanks.
Roberta, you're from LifeSum, right?
Mhm.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you.
No, thanks to you.
Yeah, let's see. We did have another question that I think would be great for us to answer. I don't know if the person who asked this question is here, but from AnyTune, we had the question, I'm looking for accurate and easy way to implement attribution. I need to prove ROI spend before I can borrow from Braavo. Can Braavo help me do this? So I think, like, Chris, did you want to answer this? I think.
Yeah, sure. So accurate, easy to implement attribution, I don't think that really exists. I mean, so what I mean by that is a lot of the major attribution platforms like Adjust and AppsFlyer, for example, they require SDK integrations, which requires development resources to implement it into the platform. It's not as easy, it's not plug and play or easy integrations like using Braavo platform. So while it might not be an easy to implement attribution, we know for a fact that Adjust and AppsFlyer are two of the main attribution platforms that we see out there. And like I said, I think at the beginning of the call, a large majority of the accounts using Braavo use AppsFlyer, but Adjust, in my opinion, is just as good.
Mm-hmm. I think also what's great is that it may not provide this granular detail data when it comes to attribution on Braavo Analytics, but it does allow you to see at a high level how your ad spend is doing. And I think that can in many ways help prove ROI. And I know, again, as I said earlier, that is something that Braavo takes into consideration when it's looking at companies on the funding side of things.
For sure.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions? Okay,
Not
cool.
at the moment.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. This is our first office hours, as I said. So I hope you found this to be useful. If you do have any follow-up questions, please feel free to follow up with myself or Chris directly. We'll also be sending this recording later, so keep an eye on your inbox for that. And we would like to be hosting more sessions like these. So if you have any feedback or ideas or things that you'd like to spend an hour learning about with us, please let us know, because we want to make sure we're providing some useful stuff for you guys.